Absolutely, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Prekop. For those of you that I don't know, I work for BrookSource. We're an IT consulting firm here in the Twin Cities. So I'm a professional recruiter, so looking at resumes, conducting interviews, sourcing candidates all day, every day. I've had the opportunity to be part of Eagle Group for the past 2 years, and have absolutely loved coming to meetings, even in the virtual format, still getting a chance to see everyone. And Alan has asked me to lead today's 20-minute session. And like he had mentioned, really looking to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit in terms of how recruiters or HR generalists are going about sourcing talent, and using that in your job search to help identify not only positions, but then also people to conduct your 20-minute networking sessions with. So I do have just a brief presentation to kind of help the conversation flow. So while I'm pulling that up, please be sure to interrupt, ask questions, put things in the chat to make sure that we're answering your questions real time. And Alan, if you can help me monitor the chat, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So we're really going to be diving into Boolean logic today. And so I think some folks may have heard of it. Some may have actually used it, but really just want to explain not only what Boolean logic is, but then really how you can leverage it as you're going through your job search. So I guess before we dive in, has anybody used Boolean or is familiar with kind of what the logic is?
Not unless it has anything to do with Boolean algebra.
Kind of. So
that's the last time I've heard that term.
Yep. So Boolean is actually an algebraic formula. So this is kind of my table to explain exactly like what it is. So essentially, you can create your own formula using different commands and operators to essentially build out a search or different kind of to pull out results that you're specifically looking for. So to kind of walk through what each of these operators are and what it does, and then I have a few different examples that we can walk through. So your first two operators and an or are going to be your most common. So these essentially are going to either broaden or narrow your search. So a few different examples, if you're a software engineer and you're looking for a job position or a job description, you may want to put developer and Java. So that's going to narrow down your search to bring back results that have to have both of those items. Whereas or is going to broaden it. So the example here, I went with more industry. So if you're maybe a project manager that has worked in the retail space, but can also see that applying in e-commerce or B2B, you can simply add all of those different elements with ors in between, and it'll broaden your search results. The next couple are a little bit more kind of just logistics and important to note. You'll see it a lot in the examples. So to highlight a few of them, quotation marks are a great way to capture phrases. So instead of putting individual words, project and manager and whatever your industry is, you can simply put that in quotes so that anytime the word project manager, whether that comes up in a title or an actual or a title of an individual that they hold or a description, it'll be lumped together. So it'll just basically save you time in the long run. Parentheses are used to build out more complex searches. So you could absolutely type into Google developer and Java. You're going to get quite a lot of options there. So by leveraging multiple commands or multiple operators in the same parentheses, you're going to be able to bring in multiple searches or multiple filters at the same time. So again, here's the type of position. I want to be a manager, and here are the 3 different industries that I'm open to. The last 2 here are, again, just kind of like quick tips and tricks. The asterisk is my absolute favorite. It saves so much time. And it really helps to identify alternative forms of maybe the word or like title that you're searching. So for example, develop with an asterisk would pull back developer, developing, develops, development, developments. So all of those different alternative forms. So basically you can just put the root of a word, add the asterisk, and then that will pull back anywhere in a job description or in someone's LinkedIn profile, how they are developing or managing whatever it happens to be. So that's a really great one to use for like verbs. So if you have a specific, your core competencies or strengths, and you're looking for someone or a position that has those similar things, I would strongly recommend using the asterisk for that there. And then lastly, for the site, this is where you can actually search specific websites. So in all of the examples I'll show, all you need is just your internet and Google. So you can draft up your Boolean search and just copy and paste it into your web browser, and that will just automatically pull back your results. But if you wanted to search specific profiles, for example, if you're looking for people to network with, I always recommend creating your Boolean and adding LinkedIn, the site www.linkedin.com, and that will pull up specific LinkedIn profiles. So it's just another way. You can absolutely search within LinkedIn, but this is just another way that you can search like an extra layer or one step further to identify individuals to conduct those 20-minute networking meetings with. That was a lot of content. What questions, if any, do we have about what Boolean actually is and what maybe these operators or commands mean? Anything in the chat, Alan?
Nope, nothing's in the chat right now.
Perfect. So now we'll actually put it to work and we'll apply it. So this is really, again, I've already kind of mentioned the Boolean logic is really a great way to essentially data mine your different opportunities. And I think most importantly, your networking contacts. So I connect with folks and they've read the 20-minute networking book. They feel really confident about how to conduct that, but then they hit the point of, okay, who do I actually have the conversations with? So by using Boolean logic, you can actually find those people. So I always recommend a 3-step process: think, create, search. With think, this is really where I always recommend just opening up a blank Word document or your notepad and actually just typing out all of the different options that you may want to include in your Boolean. So for example, for titles, this could be senior project manager or program manager. So all of the different titles that you may either you're seeking in a position or for the people that you're interested in connecting with. This is also a great way to do if you're looking to connect with leaders at a company or at a smaller organization. If you're looking to connect with directors or VP or C-suite level, you can add that into a Boolean specifically. Companies, I think, is pretty straightforward. Again, this could be a great way to list out different organizations in which you're interested. Industries, same thing. And then location is really, really important. So you're able to map out, specifically kind of where within the country, or if you want all of your search results to be local, you can just simply add in Minnesota in your search, and that'll keep everything local. So once you kind of think through how you want your Boolean to look, you can actually draft it. So now we're in step 2. This again, I think, is really important to save just a running list of all of your different Boolean strings. This way, you already have the work done, and it's just a matter of copying and pasting. So maybe 1 week you're focusing on networking with project managers at X company. Maybe next week you want to focus on a different company or a different industry entirely. Instead of starting from scratch, you can just take the work that you've already done, copy and paste that, tweak your search just a little bit, and then you're good to go. So again, I think it's a fairly straightforward kind of concept, but want to see any questions on kind of the 3-step method. Awesome. We'll get into some examples. So the first one here is more so for job postings. And so I know we've talked a lot about not wanting to just apply blankly, always wanting to make sure you can connect with the person or the human behind the posting. But this can be a great way to find some of those specific postings if you're finding that your search is a little bit stale, or you're not finding the as focused as you're looking for. So you can see on the left-hand side, title, industry, I'll walk through other in a second, and then site. And then those are the specific items that I've thought through and I want to make sure that I'm capturing. You can see the different commands and operators that I've used in each of those. And then once you have all of those separate, you can just simply string them together with ands. And then you have your full Boolean search. So once you have this drafted, you can go plug this into Google. And these are the first few results. So this is something that I did live. And these are the active positions that are hiring that meet that Boolean criteria. You can do the exact same thing for networking purposes. So again, this is more so I'm looking for a specific person or people. This is a great way with that other. This is where you can get more specific, or if you're looking for a specific, maybe outside of like industry, but you want it to be in a specific branch of the military, or if you want somebody that went to your alma mater or is part of a similar networking group or organization that you are, you can get really creative. So you can filter for those common threads and those common ties, so that you know when you reach out for the 20-minute networking meeting, you already know that that tie is there. So you can filter by affiliations or different groups that you're a part of. So again, same thing, building out your different strings, adding ands in between, and then the first specific, again, you just plug it into Google, and the first few profiles that pop up are all specific managers or project managers at United Health Group or Optum.
So I noticed you need the parentheses there. Is that correct?
Yep. So parentheses are going to be really important whenever you have multiple categories. So if I were just searching this top half of titles, I wouldn't need the parentheses. But once you add another group or you add an and, you need to make sure that you add the parentheses, or otherwise it messes all, you'll get an error. And then that's a really fun way to go through and see if it's correct or not. So definitely a kind of a trial and error method, but once you figure it out, it can be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So that's all of the prepared content that I have for today. Again, I know that was fairly quick, but if anybody has any questions, or if anybody wanted to do a quick practice one, I'd be more than happy to draft up a Boolean that we can try out together, but definitely want to see if there are any questions or comments.
I have a question. So I know that you talked about Boolean logic in terms of searching for people that you want to network, and maybe even for a job. But what if you want to be what if you want to be seen on the search results, when a recruiter is looking for a qualified person on LinkedIn, for example? I mean, for me, for example, I've used full stack developer and software engineer, but is it what are some of the other really good ways that you can actually try to show up in search results when recruiters search for whatever person that they want?
Yeah, it's a great question. And essentially you're able to reverse engineer. So what I just walked through, that's exactly how, when I'm looking for candidates, I go through the exact same thing of what kind of titles would the candidates I'm looking for have. So if you can go ahead and almost write your own search, if you were to try to find yourself, and make sure that you're adding those keywords and those phrases into your LinkedIn profile. I actually, when I was doing a few just practice examples, Nick came up in one of my search results. So Nick, your LinkedIn profile is hitting the mark for Minnesota project managers. So that's a good kind of litmus test to see, okay, if I'm building out this search, where am I falling in the results? If I know that they're looking for specific industries or specific languages, how can I incorporate that more into my resume or my profile to be towards the top of the search list?
So if you have You know, like they're looking for 5 languages or something like that, coding, but you have 4, but you have training in the other one. That'll pick up in the search too if you put trained in this specific one?
Exactly. Yep. So if there is something that may, like you said, with that example specifically, if the 5th thing that maybe you're not an expert in, but you know that it's in a lot of descriptions or a lot of hiring or managers are looking for, I would absolutely recommend adding that in your profile. And just with a qualifier around like personal learning or personal training in X, Y, and Z, so that it'll still come up just in the search. And it'll just simply be highlighted or bolded saying this individual checks all 5 of these boxes. And then that way, hopefully you'll have a chance to have that phone conversation and more in depth explain, I'm not an expert in all 5, but these 4 in training in the 1. It's a great point.
So anything and everything that we put in the search should be qualified or quantified or whatever by having them with quotation marks and all inside parentheses, just like you would do it for different things in Boolean algebra, same kind of thing.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So for your whole search string, it will have multiple components, and each component or each category should have parentheses. So all of your titles will have parentheses, and as your operator, all of your industries, and so on.
Okay. That simplifies it from what I've been doing.
Nicole, oh, go ahead.
How would you do a Boolean search for like an entry-level apprenticeship?
Yes.
Like a mechatronics apprenticeship or like electrical?
Yep. So one of the things that you can absolutely do is add in a search component that's specifically for entry level. So
Okay.
what I mean by that is maybe putting entry level in quotation marks, or associate or intern with an asterisk, or fellowship or co-op. So you're pulling back kind of all the different ways a company might call something junior or associate or entry. And then you're specifically putting that in your search. So you're not pulling back senior analyst or senior engineer, but more specific to the level that for which you're seeking.
Okay,
Does that help?
that helps. Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Nicole, back in your string, you had UHG and United Health Group. Did you have UHG, the initialism, in quotations, or did you have it out of quotations?
So anything, I'll pull up my screen again. Anytime you have a multi-word phrase, it needs to be in quotations or it will break the logic. So for that specific example, oops. Oh boy. Okay, so for that specific example, and I appreciate you calling attention to this, because one thing to keep in mind is people may write their company a little bit different. So this is all basically saying the exact same thing, but depending on where spaces are, it's important to know that there might be multiple ways that it's represented in a resume. LinkedIn is pretty standard because it has the drop downs, but this is a good way to just notate that it might be, if it's a company that they've acquired, or the way like US Bank might be written with a space or not. So just things to keep in mind as you're going through that think phase of writing your Boolean.
So if you put, this is crazy because sometimes I'll write something like this and, I'll write it wrong. And so nothing will come out right because I forgot, a quotation mark or something. So this is why I'm asking these. So if you put UHG in quotation marks, or if you put like 3M, should it be in quotation marks, or does it matter if you put it in quotation marks? That's just why this stood out for me.
Yep, so you definitely can put it in quotation marks, but it's not required.
Excellent.
So the only time, so you'll see like Optum here. So this is actually, so one has quotations, one doesn't, and the string still works. Perfect. The only time it wouldn't is if it's multiple words or phrases, if I didn't have quotation marks listed here.
Thank you.
Great catch.
I have a question on that same follow-on. So just because if you're wondering, right, could you do 3M or 3M in quotes, both? And would that break it?
So it wouldn't break it, but it would be the same thing. So it would just be repetitive. So you would absolutely be able to do that, but it wouldn't be required.
I have a little comment. I use this same technique in minnesotaworks.net for when I send out my emails that I do each day. If there's a job from Minnesota Works, I use this exact format. So it works in there too.
Awesome. And it's a great way if there's events or if you're looking for a company like press release. So it doesn't just have to be for job postings or specific folks to network with, but community-driven events, philanthropic opportunities, volunteering opportunities. It's a really great way. You can, if you're looking for holiday gifts, you can like best budgets, you can do whatever you can. I love Boolean because you can absolutely manipulate it to do with it what you want. But from a professional setting, there's a lot of great use cases for it.
So I noticed when you did that think box, you had location in there. Are companies, going away from that, or if they're putting remote in there, do they care where you are, or should you care, Twin Cities area? But if there's something down in St. Louis and I can work remote, then that shouldn't be. I shouldn't exclude that on my search. Are they using the word remote, or what kind of words are they using that I could search for that?
Great question. So I've seen most commonly remote or telecommute. So that would absolutely, I'd say, if you want to put that into like a search component, I think I most commonly use the location qualifier if I'm looking for local folks to like network with. I think to your point, just with everything that's happening with the pandemic, there's so much uncertainty, and especially who knows what's going to happen down the road. So I think there's definitely been a wider case of individuals that you can sit anywhere and work 100% telecommute for roles. So I definitely think the location piece isn't as important for looking for specific postings, but I think it is always kind of nice when you know someone that's like, oh, you're in the metro, or where they're at. So I think that would still probably be something I'd want to include if I'm looking for or if I were to be looking for networking specific contacts.
So do a lot of those keywords, do they translate into the language that Packer fans recognize?
I'm a big Packer fan, and I hope that doesn't get me kicked off of this call.
Hey, Nicole, I see that you used it in your examples exclusively on Google, and it did pull up LinkedIn profiles. I'm wondering if you can just copy it as is over and directly into LinkedIn so you focus only on people. And then also I'm wondering about, because I often tell people to use searches for jobs on Indeed for profiling a company, right?
Yep.
What kind of software they use and what, right? Would it work on Indeed as well?
Absolutely, yes. So you are able to just copy and paste your search string and put it right into LinkedIn. But if you wanted to look at Indeed, if you wanted to look up Glassdoor, if you, for technical folks, if you wanted to look up like GitHub profiles, you can search any site. And all you have to do is add the command or the operator that's site : and then the just general address. So I tend to just typically do it right in Google because I'll add in, I want to search Indeed and Monster and LinkedIn. It's just kind of the one-stop shop for me. But you can absolutely adjust it based on what results you're looking to pull back and what specific website you're looking to pull from. It's a great point.
Will you share your slide deck in the
absolutely I can do that
chat over there?
Of course.
Thank you.
And if anyone has any other questions or wants to walk through like a one-on-one Boolean, I'm more than happy. I'm pretty nerdy when it comes to Boolean, so let me know. I'll be sticking around. So if anybody has that as a specific ask for the one-on-one, more than happy to do that.
We'll definitely get you a bumper sticker that says Boolean is my thing.
I wouldn't be opposed.
That's very cool. Are there other questions or comments or insights or thoughts about how to make this useful for you guys in a daily job search?
You know, Alan, I was thinking, you know, as Nicole was sharing this with us, you know, a lot of folks, you know, when you're building your resume, it's important to put in the keywords that the industry is looking for. What I would want to use it for is looking for job descriptions for certain positions, and then look on each of those and maybe combine them and put them all in a word cloud to see what words are more highly used and are that I could build into my resume.
So you're saying basically sort of reverse engineering it, look for the job postings, find the word clouds, right, that are most used words, put those in your profile, and then do a Boolean search to see how well you rank.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's like next level stuff, man. That's really good. I like that. Are you going to offer that as a service?
I don't know, only if I can get an Aaron Rodgers special.
Yeah, right. No, I like that. That's very clever, Pet. It's smart because then you know for sure where you're at and how you're ranking.
Hey, Nicole, I had a question in regards to like military folks with their backgrounds. Do you find it better when they translate within the resumes or their profiles, their military experience into business equivalent words? And then my second question on that is, if they don't want to, I mean, take a whole bunch of real estate with, you know, essentially two sets, is having like a tagline or a word line and literally saying tags with a colon and then, you know, the equivalent either in their profile or resume helpful or hurtful?
Great question. So I would definitely recommend translating to business terms for a majority of like your resume and your profile, but to pull back specific, like as being part of top results for maybe somebody that is searching for military or veteran talent, I do think that it's possible to add that type of verbiage in more so like your summary statement or in your additional experience. So you don't have to by any means cut it out entirely, but I think the more you can take the specific like day-to-day of what you're looking to do and have that be as closely related to the corporate like posting as possible, I think it'll not only help you get identified in the search, but then also more likely to have that initial phone interview or move forward in the interview process. Did I answer your question, Les?
Yeah, because I think that, again, we're playing the odds here, right? Of getting essentially the computer program identifying you in a combination that lifts you to the top, right?
Definitely. And the more often, I should also have mentioned, the more often a search or like a title, if I have that in my search, the more often it's in your resume or your profile, the higher up on the search results. So essentially, when you write out a Boolean, the most relevant matches are ones that check every single box. So even if you have an or statement of retail or e-commerce, a candidate that checks both of those and has both of those in their resume or LinkedIn versus just one is going to be listed ahead. So if you think about that as you're building out a maybe more complex search, candidates that have checked more of those boxes just simply in the Boolean are going to be higher on that search result list. So to your point, playing the odds, you want to be towards the top and one of the first phone calls before they find somebody if you're later in the list.
Do some of the advanced systems use synonyms?
I apologize, what?
Do some of the advanced systems use synonyms? So let's say like product manager, project manager, without having to type it in?
So I don't trust the systems. So I tend to write all of the different alternative forms, just knowing that's typically what works best. I can't speak for other like corporate systems in terms of how they work. I do know typically, like when I, again, am either on Google or LinkedIn, I like putting all the alternative forms myself. just because I think a project manager versus a product manager can be very, very different depending on the company. So I would probably recommend like putting in both, as opposed to hoping that it's the synonym or the alternative form pops up.